begin this morning's session. Once we get everybody in here, there's another 10 or 15 people. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, but let's wait until everybody comes in. Then, thank you, Chris. Then, some of you may have noticed at the table outside the entrance to the auditorium that there were sign-ups, registration slips if you wish. I'm sorry? That there was a... If I saw it, I'd sign it.
I'll get one for you.
You may wish to testify and participate, constructively participate in the discussion. Chris Petrito, Chris, where are you? Chris is back here. He's got slips, and he'll be bringing them in, and we will be glad to have you testify. So I think just about everybody is in here, so that we can get going. We're going to try to wrap up about noon. There's another session in Ashland this afternoon that we have to get to, but we will try to spend as much time to answer questions and listen to comments as possible. So with that, let us all rise and pledge the allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, thank you, and again, good morning. To my right is Representative Nick Milroy, State Representative from Superior, representing most of Douglas County and parts of Washburn County. Representative Bewley had another commitment this morning, but will be joining us approximately at 11 o'clock. This is the fourth listening session that I have had in the district since the legislature adjourned. I'm trying to hold sessions throughout the district to discuss issues of concern for citizens and to provide citizens information that they may not have had to get the facts straight about the many complicated and controversial issues the legislature has dealt with in the last 2 years. What is important, I think, to recognize is that we are here to listen, but also to inform. As Paul Harvey used to say, here is the rest of the story. In this very hyperactive, political, hypertensive, partisan political environment that we live in this country, where people are so divided, so angry at each other.
Yeah, who's
Often
dividing us? Quiet, please. Let him talk.
When one comes to Hurley, the one thing that you know you're going to expect is civility. That's the reputation of the citizens of Hurley and Iron County, regardless of their politics. They are respectful people. They tolerate differences. And I know that that is the widespread feeling of most of you, regardless of what your feeling is on this issue. As I was saying, that we live in this very divided country, where there is too much of a tendency to shout rather than to learn, where there's an unwillingness to compromise and too much of a desire to confront, in which there is way too little unwillingness to try to come up with responsible decisions that meet the balanced interest of citizens of different views. Now, this I suspect today, as at our previous listening sessions, that the mining issue will be the topic of primary interest to each and every one of you. It's important to know that there are many voices on that issue. I have had, in the past 1 year, at least 10 different meetings, public meetings, private meetings, with individuals in Iron County, Hurley and Iron County, over the issue of mining. I've had countless other meetings over in Ashland County, sometimes with representatives from Ashland and Iron County, as we looked for solutions to a very complicated and controversial issue. This is not an issue in which people are of one voice. It indeed, though, people do support jobs. Mayors in Ashland County and town officials in Ashland and citizens in Ashland care as much about economic development and jobs as those in Iron County. We should not have a civil war between neighbors because they have a different view on how those jobs might be created. And it is unfortunate that we have gotten to the point where this issue has almost debilitated the community, in which it has pitted good people against each other simply because they care. There are two Mayor Joes in proximity to each other. One in Hurley, Mayor Joe Bernardi in Hurley, who loves his community, serves his community, very much wants improvement for the community. So also does Joe Barabee in Mellon. They both want the same. They want the best. They want job opportunities for their children. And yet, when I've received correspondence from each of them, they've taken a different view on the particular bill. I've received correspondence from citizens in Montreal who said, vote for the Assembly bill, regardless of what's in it, vote for it at all costs. Followed by 2 or 3 more emails from Montreal where citizens have said, continue to fight for the Jauch proposal because we think it is the most responsible bill. Now, to those who come to this discussion with a sense of vengeance, we must ask you, what does it serve this democratic process if we cut one person up into pieces in order to make the other whole? The best legislation, the best government, the best democratic process is one where legislators work with citizens of different views to try to find a consensus. That happens to be the Wisconsin way. It is a tradition in Wisconsin where through open government, through deliberation and often differences of opinion, citizens and leaders have found ways to reach conclusions that are good for everybody. That's the way Wisconsin has functioned. That's the way we should continue to function, to solve problems, not salivate over the fact that we have deep differences. So let me add one more point, that people want us to work together. Regardless of your political affiliation, I cannot tell who is a Democrat, who is a Republican, who is conservative, and who is liberal. You are the faces of northern Wisconsin. You are the faces of the community. You are faces of people who care deeply about this region and its future. But you do want Democrats and Republicans in the legislature to work together. And I'm proud that I did work with Senator Schultz to put together a bipartisan bill, not on a resolution honoring a basketball team, but a bipartisan plan on a complicated, controversial topic. One that didn't generate total support from either side, but received criticism from both sides, which tells me that what he and I attempted to do was put forth a responsible plan that might move towards consensus. simply blame politics for everything. Politics is part of our life, certainly part of our business, where we have the responsibility of trying to respond to people who have different points of view. And you have to choose the right and responsible way to reach solutions. It's often difficult. But for those of you who have been in those 10 or 12 meetings with me over the past year, and we've had disagreements, differing points of view during those meetings, I don't think any of them would say that any time did they know that my interest in this legislation was to try to embarrass Governor Walker or make a Democratic stand. So,
How about when you went back, when you went to Illinois?
So, I will show you respect. You should show those who are perhaps sitting next to you or behind you that same degree of respect this morning. Ask those who were in the meetings.
I was there.
Ask those who were in the meetings. Let me work backwards, and I'm going to take a few minutes to describe the legislation to try to set the record straight. Shortly after the legislature adjourned, I sent Governor Walker a letter encouraging him to put together a group of legislators to find a solution.